General Committee met last night, and there was a host of items passed on the committee's consent agenda right off the bat. Cost sharing for new sanitary pumps in the Salem neighborhood, digital Main Street grants, and a whole bunch more. But I'll skip to some agenda items which got councillors talking a little bit more. Remember, none of these are final decisions, and these get moved before City Council next week for final approval. Councillor McCann moved a motion to establish a Heartberry sign on the waterfront. It would look a lot like the ones that you're probably thinking of in Toronto, Calgary, other places around the world. This might seem like a small decision and discussion, but it turned into a big one, a discussion about public art, design, and the placement of these signs. A major update off the bat, Councillor McCann announced that he would undergo fundraising for the full amount of the sign, and that's not expected to exceed $200,000. Councillor Thompson added a friendly amendment allowing for more time prepping the sign's design, pushing that until 2022. And then councillors got into the nitty-gritty. And here's a little bit more on the motion to design the sign and the makeup of the committee who would help determine the design.
I was wondering if you could provide any clarity around if we have an Arts and Culture Committee. I just wanted to recognize we've got a lot of these installations that have occurred in the downtown. We've also got a lot of other initiatives that will be changing the waterfront area. And I was wondering if Access Ferry was an inclusive umbrella that I might not appreciate who might reflect that, or if there's an Arts and Culture Committee that would be engaged in this.
Councillor McCann.
Yep. So I think that we do have a member from the Public Art Committee on the selection process, which is the guy, which is Councillor Robert Thompson. He sits on that committee.
And I do appreciate the questions from Councillor Congo and the answers from Councillor McCann, and maybe through you too, the member of the Public Art Committee, to Councillor Thompson. Obviously, you're on the committee and you're a committed member. Do you feel comfortable representing that group, or is it something else, someone else from the art committee you would recommend? I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm just kind of wondering, as it relates to public art, do you see yourself as that representative?
Through you, Mayor Lehman. Thanks for putting me on the spot there, Councillor Harris. I think once this has to go through the procurement and all that, and we would involve Deputy Mayor Ward also sits on the Public Art Committee with me. So anything that was going to be installed, out of the courtesy of public art would be brought in and discussed in the meeting. Now, this motion had occurred after our last public art meeting. But I am comfortable that I would work with the Public Art Committee.
As well, the location of a sign like this sparked debate.
I think the important thing is for the location. I think that could affect public art. I think I'm comfortable that before it goes ahead, when we determine a location, it's run by the Public Art Committee, just to make sure it's not either a site that's going to overshadow some of their existing art, or a site that maybe they had their mind, a site set on to put public art in the future. I think that's the main thing. Because
the family of Bob Hunter donated funds to build a similar looking sign in Meridian Place as well. Here's a little bit of that discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor Ward. I had it expressed to me by a couple of people that the Hunter family's just given the city $100,000 to have a piece commissioned and located in Meridian Place with a giant heart, the heart and the horn. And obviously there were concerns that if this sign, especially if it had a heart, was located nearby or in some way, that would really detract from their very generous donation to the city and the work that was done to locate that piece.
Councillor Kungle added an amendment engaging Barrie's local arts community on the location of the sign.
But I'm looking more just to associate, before it's completely finalized, there is some type of formal nod to our arts community, that there will be a formal outreach. I think right now what I'm seeing from others that are connecting in on the motion that they're seeing is that it's reading that the working group is identified of members of council and elected officials. While we represent different hats, I think they are looking to see about how are we appreciating our arts community or reaching out to the McLaren.
But McCann said that might roadblock his fundraising processes.
This is going to go. It's hard for me to sell something that we may put in Queen's Park, right? So
Councillor McCann, maybe if I could help
Sure.
with I understand what you're saying. If maybe we add that staff report back to general committee with engagement to the McLaren and the Barrie Public Art with something in the BIA boundary.
Like, I think that, you know, if I can be so, if you don't mind, Mayor, being a little freestyle here, is that we've got a week, right? And I've had many discussions with the mayor, with Robert Thompson, with Jim Harris, Councillor Harris, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Morales, Councillor Aylwin, about, you know, this. And I've had many discussions with the public, and I've had many forums on social media, and location hasn't really been a major stumbling block or roadblock. Either way, I'm not going to be too hard on the final design, as long as it fits into our financial criteria, and it's elegant, it's bold, it's stunning, and it's sustainable. And I think that the person that's manufacturing this sign should be one designing this, because with my lack of knowledge, they'll have more intricacies on what $200,000 will get us. So once again, I feel like I've gone the long way around Lake Simcoe today, but I mean, I've got a lot of passion towards this. Councilor Morales is nodding, so I'll just stop talking.
And I will call the question. The motion has been amended. Those in favor of the motion as amended, please indicate. That is unanimous.
Next up is a proposal to look into the feasibility of new bylaws that would restrict the sale of animals from Barrie pet stores. Through discussion, we see that the debate kind of focuses in on whether breeders and puppy mills could sell their animals through pet stores. And that conversation got interesting as well. Here's how that unfolded.
It was shared with me that Orangeville, Toronto, Richmond Hill, Newmarket, London, Mississauga, Oshawa, and some others had adopted a very similar bylaw. I explored this with our city clerk to appreciate what was currently in our bylaws around the wellness of animals. So should there be an appetite, I wanted to move it forward with council to appreciate any recommendations staff could bring back. The intention is where we might be able to play a more formal role, as others have, around tightening up our bylaws that supports where we can, making sure that we are not enabling the sale or commerce of animals like puppies from puppy mills.
I guess part of my concern, even with your amendment by removing registered breeder, is your motion actually effectively, targets one individual retailer here within our city that, as far as I'm aware, through a full day of investigating this, I have not found any evidence that there's been any issues with this particular retailer. And it effectively would refrain them from being able to sell realistically, even though you're using the word animals, I assume because you referred to puppies, that you're actually targeting, your target audience would be the dogs. But you're effectively shutting down this retail business in the midst of a pandemic. We're in our second week of being removed from lockdown. And I just question, the timing and the intent of this.
It wasn't meant to be targeted, but I wanted them to be well informed, because some people are not watching City of Barrie conversations, and to reach out to their respective ward councillors. Also did identify, and asked questions based on what I saw, understand you're a different business than those that might have been caught in media tied to other pieces. But the intention really is not targeting a particular business, but looking at this from a movement where other municipalities have changed their bylaws to where they're able to look at, I would just say, concerns with any business operating in a way in which it profits from the sale of animals that might actually go through third party or otherwise.
The motion on the floor. Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of the motion as amended.
Now, as you might have heard, the Georgian Theatre is closing. with no really viable alternative in the short term, as Barrie kind of lacks those larger art spaces. Here's Mayor Lehman talking a little bit about how council underwent that decision.
We make the decision, and we made this decision. This was a reverse intake form in the budget, and the fact that we had made the Fisher decision after the budget was printed meant that when we then made this decision, we closed the, we closed the only existing space. So it's really, as much as I appreciate staff communicating back, the process and the lack of engagement, perhaps, of the groups, it really was. It's on the 11 of us. I mean, we're the ones who made the call to approve the staff recommendation to close the Georgian Theatre, having just killed the Fisher project. In terms of the renovation of the facility. Now, of course, Councillor Jim Harris moved a motion as part of the budget as well to establish a theatre reserve. And the Fisher project, while the renovation of the existing facility was killed by council and the demolition approved, the project to proceed with a planning for a new facility is very much, of course, alive. However, it was council's decision that we close now, long before a new facility would be ready, our involvement in the Georgian Theatre. And so I think I wanted to say tonight that, that's on me, that's on us as council, because we made that call. And unfortunately, I think we made the decision in the absence of a viable strategy for the medium term.
Well, there were announcements aplenty. I'll skip those for this week and head to Mayor Lehman's explanation of one agenda item which wasn't held, and that's the sewage pipe system at the new development in Salem.
I mentioned earlier in the meeting tonight that the sanitary sewer item, the giant pipe issue, which council wrestled with and staff and the development, the landowner community and the Salem secondary plan have been dealing with for literally years, was approved tentatively by General Committee tonight. And the significance of this for the city is not only that it services some of the anticipated new neighborhoods in the Southwest, but also the business park lands along Highway 400, the industrial employment lands that are proposed to be located at Mackay Road and the 400. So this is a very important piece of infrastructure. And because we didn't hold the item tonight, I wanted to make mention that long-awaited piece in terms of our economic offer and making sure that there are locations in Barrie for manufacturers to grow and for businesses to, for us to compete to attract businesses to the city, new large-scale users. This is a very important piece of infrastructure to do that.
And lastly, big news for parkers in downtown Barrie. There's a new app.
On March 1st, we're launching the app. And the app is called Hotspot, which is pretty clever branding for a parking app. It is in use in some other municipalities. We aren't the first, but I would like to think we are the best. It features contactless payment, extending your parking session. So if you're in at a doctor's appointment and the doctor's running late, which never happens, and you haven't paid for enough parking, you can just extend it off your phone on the app. You get a refund for unused time. I'm not sure how I feel about this one, but I'm sure it's better for the customer.
And that's all for this week. Council moved in camera to discuss committee appointments. And I will see you next week at Barrie City Council.